So, listener, I want you to just picture something with me for a second. Just put yourself right in the scene.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so it is late 2002. You are walking through the back aisles of a very quiet, very average public library,
Right.
and sitting there, literally right on the floor, cross-legged in the middle of this aisle, is a 35-year-old man.
Just right on the floor.
Right on the floor. And he's a financial worker. He lives in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Very typical suburban life.
Exactly, yeah. He has a wife, he has 2 kids, he has a mortgage. I mean, on paper, his life is just the absolute blueprint of ordinary middle-class success.
Right. Checking all the boxes.
Yeah, but right now in this library, he is surrounded by this towering, just totally chaotic stack of books.
What kind of books are we talking about?
We are talking really dense philosophy, ancient religion, complex psychology.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so like Socrates, Carl Jung, the Buddha, even some esoteric quantum physics texts.
That's a heavy reading list for a Tuesday afternoon.
Right, and here's the thing. This man is sobbing.
Just breaking down.
Completely broken down. I mean, tears streaming down his face, gasping for air, kind of sobbing.
It is a really striking image, isn't it? Because, the context completely shifts when you realize exactly why he is crying.
It really does, because you look at that scene and you just assume tragedy, right?
Yeah, you assume his life fell apart, or he's, having a nervous breakdown or something.
Exactly. But he isn't crying out of sadness at all.
No, not at all.
He is weeping because as he's randomly flipping through these incredibly dense, historically complex texts, he realizes that he suddenly understands them.
Every single word.
Everywhere. He completely understands the core essence of what Jung is saying.
Yeah.
He grasps the Buddha's intent perfectly. And the craziest part is he has never studied a day of philosophy or Eastern religion in his entire life.
Which is just, it completely shatters all the cultural expectations we hold about, how wisdom is actually acquired.
Right, right. Because normally if you ask someone how to reach enlightenment,
Or just how to achieve a really profound understanding of the universe, they usually point to, decades of isolation in a monastery.
yeah, or some crazy traumatic near-death experience that completely rewires the brain.
Exactly. But here's a guy who basically just walked out of a wealth management office, drove his completely average sedan to the local library, and experienced this total spontaneous collapse of the boundaries of his own understanding.
And that profound, spontaneous collapse is exactly what we are unpacking in our deep dive today.
We really are getting into the weeds on this one.
We have to. We are pulling from a fascinating stack of sources, primarily Howard Falco's book, I Am, alongside our own extensive research notes, to figure out what the hell actually happened to this man on that library floor.
And more importantly, we need to explore the really staggering realization he walked away with.
Right. Because our mission today is to test a premise that, honestly, it sounds almost too simple to be true.
But if it is true, it changes literally everything.
Yeah.
The premise is this. The two-word declaration, I am, is the most powerful creative force in the entire universe.
It is a massive claim. I mean, huge.
It is. And to properly investigate it, we can't just stay in the realm of, soft philosophy or self-help.
No, we have to look at the actual physical mechanics of reality.
Right. This deep dive is going to take us from the literal subatomic level, looking at the quantum physics of intention, all the way up through the biological mechanics of the human ego.
And the thermodynamics of human emotion, too.
Yeah, and finally into a very practical, grounded toolkit for basically redefining yourself.
Because if Falco's premise actually holds up, understanding this architecture of I am isn't just some fun thought experiment for your commute.
No, it's the literal instruction manual for how you are subconsciously scripting your reality right now.
And how you can consciously rewrite it.
Exactly. So, listener, if you are driving right now or doing the dishes or just staring at the ceiling, I want you to keep this in the back of your mind.
Ask yourself this question. Yeah, how are you finishing the sentence I am in your own life?
It's the most important question you can ask.
Keep that front and center today. Because we really need to start by looking at who Howard Falco was before that library moment.
Right, because his background is so essential to understanding the shift.
It is. Like I mentioned, he had a completely, totally ordinary background.
A business degree from Arizona State University.
Yep, working in the financial industry. He had essentially acquired what the culture told him was the quote-unquote perfect American life.
But despite checking every single one of those boxes,
Yeah.
the marriage, the healthy kids, the successful career, He felt this crushing, unyielding discontent.
He actually described it as a bottomless hole in his chest that just never felt full.
Yeah, and it was just slowly draining the life out of him.
And we really have to pause here because that specific type of exhaustion, it is a remarkably common condition in modern society.
Oh, absolutely. It is the paradox of achievement.
Yeah.
We are all handed this cultural blueprint at a very young age. And the blueprint basically says, acquire these external markers.
The degree, the partner, the salary, the house.
Right. And if you get all those, you will achieve internal peace. That's the promise.
But when a person actually manages to acquire them and the promised peace just does not arrive.
The cognitive dissonance is physically exhausting.
Yeah, it really is.
The human mind just cannot easily reconcile the external, highly visible success with the internal, invisible emptiness.
It creates a friction that basically burns out the nervous system.
Exactly.
I am struggling with how sudden this transition seems, though. I mean, the dissonance builds and builds, and then in July 2002, he reaches a breaking point.
He does.
He's just walking down the hallway in his house. He has no more excuses. He has the money, the family, the health.
Everything you're supposed to have.
Right. And he just throws his hands up in this empty hallway and literally asks out loud, what's next? What do I have to do to be happy? How do I achieve lasting peace?
He asks it with just absolute raw earnestness.
And then, like, a few months later, he's basically downloading The Matrix in the library.
I know, it sounds wild.
I mean, come on. Is it possible this was just a massive, profound midlife crisis that his brain kind of romantically reframed as an epiphany?
That is the absolute natural skepticism we should all have when we approach a story like this.
Right.
But if we look at the psychological mechanics of what he actually describes, it wasn't a sudden download at all.
It wasn't.
No. We have to look at the concept of the vacuum.
Okay, the vacuum.
Yeah, in physics, nature abhors a vacuum.
Right.
If you create an empty space, the surrounding pressure immediately rushes in to fill it.
That makes sense.
Well, the exact same principle applies to human consciousness. When you earnestly ask a question, and I mean genuinely admitting I do not know, and demanding an answer without any preconditions, you create a mental and energetic vacuum.
And the universe just fills it.
The universe, or your subconscious mind, immediately seeks to fill that void.
Wait, let's back up a second. What do you mean by without preconditions? Because people ask questions all the time.
Sure they do.
People say, why am I unhappy? Or why can't I lose weight? Or why is my boss a jerk?
Right.
Those are questions, but they don't usually trigger profound enlightenment on a Tuesday.
Because most of us ask questions while simultaneously holding a death grip on our preferred answers.
Oh, wow, okay.
Think about it. If I ask, why am I unhappy in my relationship? But I am subconsciously demanding the answer be because my partner doesn't appreciate me, I haven't created a vacuum at all.
You've created a loaded question.
Exactly. My ego is already occupying the space where the truth is supposed to go.
So there's no room for a real answer.
None. What happened to Falco in that hallway was a rare moment of total surrender.
He dropped the preferred answers.
He dropped all of them. He admitted that his entire framework for happiness was fundamentally flawed. And that level of surrender creates a massive void.
That makes a lot of sense. The space actually has to be completely empty.
It does.
But that still doesn't explain how he got all the answers so quickly in the library. I mean, he just opened books he'd never read.
Because the data was already there in his head.
What do you mean?
To use a technological metaphor, think of how your computer works.
Oh, I have a great analogy for this, actually.
Go for it.
It reminds me of my laptop. So for months, it's running all these background updates, right?
Yeah, the worst.
It's downloading software packets while I'm trying to work, and it's totally bogging down the system. It's agonizingly slow. I'm frustrated. The fans are whirring really loud.
The friction we were talking about.
Exactly. And then finally, I get so fed up, I just hit restart to install.
Right.
The screen goes completely black. And then 20 minutes later, it boots up, and it's a completely new operating system.
Yes.
Was 2002 just his brain finally hitting restart?
That is an absolutely brilliant way to frame it. The background downloads had literally been happening for 2 decades.
2 decades?
Yeah, in the source material, Falco traces this all the way back to 1981.
Wow, okay.
He is a 14-year-old kid on a fishing trip in northern Minnesota in this place called Bear Island Lake.
Oh, I've heard of that area. It's really remote.
Very remote. So he walks out onto the dock at night. And the water is perfectly still, no wind at all.
Okay.
He looks down into the lake and he sees thousands of lights shining up from the water.
Like reflections.
Yeah, but he's confused at first, kind of disoriented, not knowing which way he's actually up.
Right.
Then he looks up and sees the night sky, completely unpolluted by city lights. He is seeing the entire Milky Way reflected perfectly in the water.
Oh, wow. That must have been incredible.
He lays down on the dock, completely awestruck, and for the first time in his life, his mind fills with these massive existential questions.
Like what?
Like, why are we here? What is the actual point of all this vastness?
So you're saying that moment on the dock in 1981 opened the background application.
Precisely.
It initiated the download.
It initiated the vacuum.
Yeah.
But it took 20 full years for the conditions to be right for the installation to finally complete.
Because he had to live through it.
Exactly. He had to live through the acquisition of the quote-unquote perfect life.
Right.
He had to experience the complete failure of that perfect life to provide actual peace before his mind was truly ready to hit your restart to install button.
So when he opened those books by Jung and the Buddha in the library, he wasn't magically reading foreign words he didn't know.
No.
He was suddenly recognizing concepts that he had just experientially lived through and processed over 20 years.
The book simply provided the academic vocabulary for the operating system that had just finished installing itself in his consciousness.
I love that. The experience preceded the vocabulary.
It usually does.
He felt the truth of it way before he had the words to describe it.
Right.
And Falco argues that this epiphany wasn't just a personal psychological quirk. Like, it wasn't just about him.
Not at all.
He claims it revealed a fundamental truth about how the universe actually operates.
Yes.
And listener, this is where we have to put our hard hats on for a second.
We do. It gets deep here.
Because to really grasp this I am concept, we have to look at the literal building blocks of reality. The book dives straight into quantum physics.
It does, and we have to be very, very precise here so we don't fall into, like, pop science hand-waving.
Right, no mystical quantum nonsense, just the actual physics.
Exactly. We need to examine the relationship between energy, matter, and intention.
Okay, let's break that down.
So classical Newtonian physics treats matter as something absolute, solid, and objective.
Like a table is a table.
A table is a table, regardless of who is looking at it. But quantum physics, specifically stemming from discoveries like the double-slit experiment over the last century, reveals something far stranger.
It gets really weird at the small level.
Super weird. At the subatomic level, matter isn't a certainty.
Right.
An electron isn't a tiny solid billiard ball just sitting in a specific place. It exists as a wave of potentiality.
A wave of potentiality.
Yeah, it exists in a state of superposition, meaning it is everywhere and nowhere all at once until a very specific event occurs.
The event being observation or measurement, right?
Yeah.
This is the part that always just completely breaks my brain. You're telling me that if I look at a chair, my conscious observation is somehow forcing the subatomic particles of that chair to lock into place.
That is the implication, yes.
That sounds like actual magic.
Yeah.
How does human intention collapse a quantum wave?
It is arguably the most hotly debated topic in all of physics. It's often called the measurement problem.
Okay.
But Falco's framework, which aligns with certain interpretations of quantum mechanics, suggests that intention is the organizing force of the universe.
Intention itself.
Yes, intention is what collapses the wave of infinite potential into a finite, observable particle. It is the fundamental will to exist.
Wow.
He argues that literally everything in the physical world has a self-expressed will to exist in its specific form.
The book uses a really great example here, actually, a granite boulder.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
Yeah, he says, if you don't think a random inanimate boulder sitting in a field has a will to exist as a boulder, try breaking it in half with your bare hands.
You'll just break your hands.
Exactly. It will literally break your hands. It is fiercely, stubbornly resisting being anything other than a boulder.
Right.
Its physical density is the literal manifestation of its intention to maintain its current form.
That is just a perfect grounding of the concept. It is the will to maintain boundaries.
Intention plus energy equals matter.
Exactly. Intention combined with energy forms matter. So if we scale this up to human beings, our very physical presence here.
The fact that you and I take up space.
Right. The fact that we require physical force to be moved, the fact that we consume and expel energy, it is self-evident proof that we matter.
And I assume you mean that in both senses of the word.
I do. We are made of matter, and therefore we have significance.
Right.
If we didn't have the underlying foundational intention to exist, the energetic bonds holding our atoms together would just dissipate.
We just dissolve.
We would dissolve right back into the wave of pure, formless potential. Our existence is the universe expressing the intention to experience itself from our exact, highly localized vantage point.
Okay, I'm with you so far. We physically exist because, at a subatomic and biological level, we intend to survive and maintain our physical boundaries.
Correct.
But here is the massive pivot that the book makes.
Let's get into it.
You and I, and the listener commuting right now, we aren't out hunting woolly mammoths anymore.
Thankfully.
Right. Our daily survival isn't usually about dodging physical predators on the savannah. So if our foundational intention is survival, but our physical survival is largely guaranteed by modern society, what happens to all that survival energy?
That is the absolute crux of the human condition right there.
Where does it go?
Because basic physical survival is largely secured, that intense primal survival instinct hasn't simply evaporated.
Right, energy doesn't just disappear.
Energy doesn't disappear, it transfers. That primal instinct has migrated. It has shifted almost entirely to social integration.
Social integration.
Yes. If you look at our evolutionary biology, for early hominids, being cast out of the tribe meant literal death by starvation or predation.
Right. If you were alone on the savannah, you were dead, period.
Exactly. So the brain wired social acceptance and physical survival into the exact same neural pathways.
Oh, wow.
Today, our subconscious logic operates on a very strict, uncompromising equation.
What's the equation?
If I am accepted by the tribe, I will be protected. If I am accepted, I am loved. If I am loved, I matter. And if I matter, I exist.
So we have literally equated social acceptance with biological survival.
The intention to survive has become the intention to belong.
Listener, let that sink in for a second. If I am accepted, I exist.
It's heavy.
That explains so much baffling human behavior. It explains why people will completely suppress their own free thought, their own intuition, their own moral compass, just to fit into a group.
It explains almost all groupthink.
I mean, look at cults or gangs or even extreme political factions where people just parrot the talking points of their side without thinking. People will adopt beliefs that are objectively harmful to them or participate in horrific acts, simply because the subconscious fear of being expelled from the group triggers the exact same panic response as being chased by a lion.
It's a biological panic.
The intention to survive socially completely overrides the intention to be authentic.
It really does, and it raises a terrifying question about personal autonomy.
Yeah, how much of us is really us?
Exactly. When your core I am, your deep sense of existence, is entirely dependent on a group's validation, you hand over your creative power to the collective.
You're just letting them write the script.
You allow others to author your reality. Falco points out tragic historical examples in the text, referencing events like the Jim Jones cult or even the Rwandan genocide.
It's just horrific events.
In these instances, the primal need to belong to the accepted group or the fear of being in the rejected group completely short-circuited independent moral reasoning.
Right.
The need to matter socially hijacked the biological survival instinct, leading to unthinkable outcomes.
Okay, so if our basic physical reality is shaped by our subatomic intention to exist, and our social reality is shaped by our primal intention to be accepted,
Right.
how do we actually decide who we are in the middle of all that noise?
That's the big question.
If intention is the force collapsing the quantum wave into our daily reality, what is giving that intention its specific flavor? Why am I sitting here as a host, and someone else is a surgeon, and someone else is a mechanic?
That brings us to the actual forging of the I am.
Yeah.
How is the self constructed in the first place?
How does it start?
It is a multi-layered process, and it begins inescapably with genetics.
Okay, biology.
You have to consider the sheer statistical improbability of your physical form. You are the culmination of the DNA of over 100,000 specific ancestors over just the last 500 years.
That number is just staggering.
It is. That specific genetic code provides your physical traits, your baseline behavioral tendencies, your metabolic rate, the very structure of your neurological pathways.
Right, that's the part of the nature versus nurture debate. But genetics are just the raw material, right?
It's just the raw material.
It's the blueprint, but it's not the building. Because the text goes heavily into epigenetics here, which I find totally fascinating. Explain to me how nurture actually alters this blueprint, because it's not just a metaphor.
It is highly literal biological science.
Right.
Epigenetics is the study of how your behaviors and environment can cause physical changes that affect the way your genes work.
Okay.
Unlike genetic changes, epigenetic changes are reversible,
Mm-hmm.
and they do not change your DNA sequence, but they change how your body reads a DNA sequence.
So the code is the same, but the output changes.
Exactly. A process like DNA methylation can add a chemical group to DNA, literally turning a specific gene off.
Just flipping a switch.
Right. So you could have the genetic potential, the exact DNA sequence, to be an Olympic sprinter.
Okay.
But if you are raised in a highly stressful, malnourished environment where you are never allowed to run, the environmental stress chemically alters the expression of that gene.
It just stays dormant.
It remains completely dormant. Nurture acts as the switch that turns genetic potentials on or off, creating a highly specific, one-of-a-kind individual out of the raw ancestral code.
And as that highly specific individual develops, they begin to define themselves. But they can't do it in a vacuum, right?
No, they need context.
Falco introduces this concept of relativity, which he says is crucial. He basically claims that without relativity, there is no reality.
Right.
Which honestly sounds like a riddle. What does he actually mean by that?
He means that human consciousness requires contrast to formulate an identity. You can only know what you are by contrasting it with what you are not.
Okay, give me an example.
You cannot understand the concept of tall unless you have a solid concept of short. You cannot understand happy without the contrast of sad.
Right, you need opposites.
If the universe was just an infinite expanse of white light, you wouldn't even know you existed because there would be no shadow to define your edges.
So you need the environment to bounce off of.
Exactly. So you define your I am against the backdrop of your environment and the people in it. You say, I am faster than my brother. I am not as smart as my sister. I am the funny one in my friend group.
Okay, and this is where the book makes a massive leap that I really want to dissect.
Let's do it.
It claims that once you construct this I am identity based on your genetics, epigenetics, and relativity, it doesn't just sit in your brain as a label.
Now it becomes active.
It becomes a literal filter for your sensory perception. The claim is that if your I am doesn't believe a possibility exists, your brain will completely fail to process the sensory data of it.
It will.
It will literally delete the information before it reaches your conscious mind. That sounds crazy.
It sounds crazy, but to understand this, we have to look at the neurology of predictive coding.
Okay.
The human brain is bombarded by roughly 11 million bits of sensory information every single second.
11 million.
Yes. But the conscious mind can only process about 40 to 50 bits per second.
Wait, so 11 million bits enter the brain, and
Oh.
we're only actually processing like 50 of them. What happens to the rest?
The brain aggressively filters it out to conserve energy.
It just dumps it.
It dumps it.
Yeah.
And what criteria does it use to decide what gets through those 50 precious bits?
The I am.
Exactly. It uses your core belief system. It predicts what you should see based on who you believe you are and how you believe the world works. And it only lets in data that confirms that prediction.
That perfectly explains the crazy story in the source material about the mechanic.
Oh, that story is a phenomenal example of sensory filtering.
Listener, there is a story in the book about a mechanic working in a garage in California. He is underneath a car on a hydraulic lift.
Right.
Suddenly, a massive earthquake hits.
A really big one.
Right. So the earthquake hits, the tools are falling off the benches, his coworkers are screaming at him to roll out from under the car, but his legs are completely frozen.
He can't move.
He cannot move a single muscle. And they thought it was just fear, right? But when they interviewed him later, he said he literally couldn't comprehend what was happening.
His brain rejected it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because his entire life, his core belief system, his foundational I am as a physical being walking on Earth, dictated that the ground is solid, reliable, and unmoving.
Right.
When he was suddenly presented with overwhelming sensory data that the concrete floor was violently shaking and rolling like an ocean wave, he had no framework for it.
Not at all.
His brain couldn't process the input because it wildly violated his core belief. The data was literally rejected, so he just froze.
He was paralyzed until his belief system could scramble, catch up, and accept a totally new reality. Okay, the ground can actually move. It is the biological mechanism of denial taken to its absolute extreme.
It's wild.
The mind will literally block out physical reality if it contradicts a foundational belief, because shattering that belief feels like a threat to the self's very existence.
The brain prefers to render you paralyzed rather than admit its foundational code is wrong. If you think about it, it's like the I am is a bouncer at a wildly exclusive, slightly corrupt nightclub.
I like this.
Right. Your conscious awareness is the VIP room inside. All these sensory experiences, sights, sounds, facts, opinions, earthquakes, they're all lined up outside trying to get in.
11 million of them.
11 million of them. But if an experience isn't on the guest list, meaning if it doesn't align with your core belief system, the bouncer just crosses his arms and says, nope, you don't exist. You're not coming in.
Exactly.
And you, sitting inside the club, are completely oblivious to the fact that the truth is even standing outside in the cold.
That is a great analogy, but let's push it further to truly capture the dynamic at play here.
Okay.
Because the bouncer isn't acting alone. A bouncer is just muscle, right?
True.
If the IM is the bouncer operating the velvet rope, who is the club manager, who is in the back room, constantly checking the guest list, pacing the floor, terrified of losing their liquor license, and ensuring the rules of the club are strictly enforced, no matter how ridiculous they are.
That would be the ego.
Precisely. The ego. And this brings us to perhaps the most misunderstood mechanism of the human mind.
Oh, I have so many questions about this.
I'm sure.
Because the way Falco treats the ego goes against almost everything I've read in pop psychology.
It really does.
In most self-help or spiritual circles, the ego is the ultimate villain.
Oh, yeah. The big bad wolf.
It's this evil, selfish, narcissistic monster living in your head that we are supposed to destroy or conquer. You hear it all the time. You need to kill your ego to find peace.
Right.
But Falco completely dismantles that. He says the ego isn't good or bad. It doesn't have a moral compass at all.
It doesn't. Morality is entirely irrelevant to the ego.
Really?
Yes. The ego is a completely neutral, incredibly dedicated, highly efficient servant. Think of it as a biological algorithm.
Okay.
Its only job is to take the script that you wrote, your I am statements, and work tirelessly to turn those beliefs into your physical and emotional experience of reality.
So it's just following orders.
It is an unquestioning validation engine.
Okay, break that down for me. Give me an example of how the ego validates a script.
Let's say, through your childhood experiences and relativity, you formulated the core belief, I am a failure.
Okay. Sad script.
Very common script, though. You wrote that script.
Yeah.
The ego doesn't judge that script. It doesn't say, oh, that's sad, we should be more positive.
It doesn't care.
It simply says, understood. The boss says we are a failure. Let's execute the protocol to make sure we fail this upcoming job interview so we can validate our existence.
Whoa.
It will make you sleep through your alarm. It'll make you stutter during the interview. It will ensure reality matches the blueprint.
That's terrifying.
Conversely, if you say, I am a fashionable, stylish person, the ego will ensure you hyper-fixate on fashion trends, buy the right clothes, and seek out environments where that specific identity is validated.
Right. And here's where it gets incredibly tricky and where that friction we talked about earlier comes in.
Right.
What happens when reality refuses to play along with your script? Let's stick with the fashionable dresser. You walk into a party feeling great, your ego is humming along, and someone looks at you and says, wow, that outfit is certainly a choice. Did you get dressed in the dark?
Ouch.
Suddenly, reality is violently attacking your I am.
And this is exactly when the club manager panics.
The ego freaks out.
The ego immediately shifts from being a passive validator to being the world's most aggressive defense attorney.
Yeah.
It has to protect the identity at all costs, because if the identity dies, the ego believes it dies too.
So it goes on the offensive.
Yeah.
It will dismiss the person who insulted you. They have terrible taste. They don't know fashion.
Right.
It will attack their credibility. Look at what they're wearing. They look like a clown. Or it will desperately seek out 3 other people at the party to compliment you just to restore the balance on the spreadsheet.
Exactly. The examples Falco uses in the text to illustrate this are wonderfully grounded in everyday life.
Give me one.
Consider the golfer. A man's identity, his core I am on the weekends, is I am a great golfer. He goes out on a Saturday and shoots a terrible round.
Yeah.
He is shanking the ball into the woods all day.
Right.
Now, the objective reality is simply that he played poorly. But the ego cannot accept that because it violently violates the I am. So the ego constructs this massive, absurd architecture of rationalization.
Right. He blames the wind.
He blames the wind.
He blames the brand of clubs he's using. He blames the slow group playing ahead of them for ruining his rhythm.
Exactly.
He will blame the rotation of the earth before he faces the simple thought, I am not as good at golf as I think I am.
Or consider the classic, almost cliche stereotype of the man who refuses to ask for directions when he's driving.
Oh, my dad. Yes.
Why does he do that? Because his I am is deeply tied to being the capable protector, the modern hunter-gatherer who instinctively knows the way.
Right.
If he rolls down the window and asks for directions, it is a direct invalidation of that identity. So his ego will compel him to literally drive 30 miles in the wrong direction, wasting time, gas, and his family's patience.
It's so irrational.
The profound irony here is that by desperately trying to avoid feeling foolish, he guarantees that he acts entirely foolishly.
That is such a good point. If he just accepted the reality, I am lost, he could ask for directions and instantly demonstrate the actual traits of a capable leader.
Adaptability, humility, problem solving.
Exactly. But the ego is terrified of the transition space. It fears the moment of admitting the current identity is flawed.
It defends the flawed identity to the death.
But listen, as we were talking about this, I have to be honest, this sounds absolutely exhausting.
It is exhausting.
If my ego is constantly acting as a defense attorney, cross-examining every piece of criticism, blaming the wind, refusing to ask for directions, filtering out earthquakes,
It's a lot of work.
how much energy is that draining from us on a daily basis, just maintaining the illusion of who we think we are?
It is entirely depleting, and I want to be really clear here that exhaustion is not a metaphor.
It's physical.
It is a literal expenditure of biological and psychological energy. When the ego's defense mechanisms are working overtime to hold back reality, it creates immense friction within your nervous system.
Oh, wow.
And as we know from basic physics, friction generates pressure and heat.
Right.
When your internal belief violently rubs up against an external reality that you refuse to accept, the psychological pressure builds up in your body and mind until it reaches a critical mass.
So if the bouncer is blocking reality, all that rejected sensory data and frustrated energy doesn't just disappear.
No, it has to go somewhere.
Which brings us directly to the concept of emotions.
Right.
And Falco defines emotions in a really structural, almost mechanical way that I hadn't heard before.
It's very unique.
He breaks down the word itself, emotion, energy in motion.
Yes. When that friction between your I am and reality becomes completely intolerable, the system is at risk of breaking.
Right.
So the brain essentially opens a pressure valve to release the built-up energy and return the system to a baseline balance. He frames this entirely through the lens of human entropy.
Okay, I know entropy from high school physics, like a melting ice cube or a messy bedroom.
Right.
It's the measure of disorder, right? How does that actually apply to my feelings?
Oh, in thermodynamics, entropy is the measure of disorder or uncertainty in a system, and it describes the universe's constant movement to dissipate concentrated energy and restore equilibrium.
Okay, so like heat dissipating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A hot cup of coffee cools down to match room temperature. That is entropy.
Got it.
For human beings, an intense emotional release is an entropic event. It is the body dissipating concentrated psychological heat. Let's look at what Falco calls a negative imbalance.
Okay, a negative imbalance happens when reality invalidates your I am.
Yes.
Let's say your car gets stolen or you get fired or your partner leaves you. You experience a sudden, violent loss of identity.
You feel less than what you were yesterday.
Right. And your ego resists this new reality with everything it has. The pressure builds, the negative energy concentrates until you literally cannot contain it, and you cry, you scream, you punch a hole in the drywall.
That is the pressure valve opening.
Wow.
Exactly. The system is violently returning to a state of balance through a physical release of energy. But what is truly fascinating about this framework is that it works the exact same way on the positive side.
Right. This totally blew my mind. A positive imbalance is when reality completely exceeds your expectations.
Right?
You buy a scratch-off ticket and win the lottery. You get a massive, unexpected promotion. You suddenly feel more than your previous identity.
Yeah.
But because reality has outpaced your core I am, it still creates friction. The pressure builds up and the release looks physically almost identical to a negative one.
It really does.
Look at people on game shows. They scream, they jump up and down, they weep uncontrollably, they might even faint.
The biological mechanics of the release are identical. Only the polarity is different.
That's crazy.
The only difference is that a negative entropic release leaves you feeling heavy, drained, and exhausted, while a positive release leaves you feeling light, euphoric, and energized.
To illustrate just how entirely subjective this pressure valve is, Falco uses the brilliant example of sports fans.
Oh, this is the best way to understand it.
Imagine you're sitting in a massive stadium watching an NFL game. The Giants are playing the Bears.
Okay.
It's the final 10 seconds of the game. The Bears quarterback throws a deep pass, and the receiver catches it in the end zone for a game-winning touchdown.
Classic scenario.
Now, stop time for a second. The physical, objective, sensory data, a man in a uniform caught a leather ball in a painted rectangle, is exactly the same for every single person in that stadium.
Right.
The data is identical, but the entropic release is entirely dependent on the internal I am of the observer.
Precisely. Let's look at the Bears fan. His identity is attached to the team.
Mhm.
I am a Bears fan.
Right.
So when they score, his identity is validated and aggrandized.
Yeah.
Positive imbalance. He jumps up, screams with joy, spills his beer, high-fives a total stranger. The pressure is released upwards.
Meanwhile, the Giants fan's identity is entirely invalidated.
Completely crushed.
Negative imbalance. He slumps down in his seat, groans, puts his head in his hands, maybe kicks the seat in front of him. The pressure is released downwards.
And consider the neutral observer. Say someone just came to the game because they wanted to eat hot dogs and enjoy the weather.
Just there for the snacks.
Exactly. Their core, I am, is not attached to the outcome of the football game whatsoever. For them, there is absolutely zero friction. No imbalance, no entropy, no emotion.
Wow.
They just watch a guy catch a ball, finish their hot dog, and walk to their car. The emotion does not exist in the event. The emotion exists entirely in the friction between the event and the observer's identity.
That is profound. And this concept of entropy scales up too. It doesn't just apply to one guy kicking a chair.
No, it happens on a macro level.
The text touches on a very intense historical example. The 1992 Rodney King riots in Los Angeles. Now, applying Falco's framework purely analytically and listener, we are looking at the mechanics of this, not taking a political or moral stance on the events.
Right, purely mechanical.
We can view this as an extreme case of collective societal entropy.
It is a sobering but highly accurate application of the theory.
Yeah.
You have a community that felt historically, systematically invalidated by the justice system.
The I am of the community was constantly under pressure.
Exactly. The acquittal of the police officers was perceived as the ultimate violent invalidation. It was a message from the macro reality of the system saying, you do not matter. Your existence is not valued.
And the resistance to that message created a massive, intolerable pressure within the collective consciousness of that community.
It reached a critical mass.
The riots, the destruction, the fires, in this specific psychological framework, that was a catastrophic emotional release.
A massive pressure valve blowing off.
It was a desperate, chaotic, destructive attempt for a group to scream, I am, and physically force reality to acknowledge their existence when they felt entirely erased by the system.
It is the exact same thermodynamics as the individual crying in their bedroom, just amplified by millions and played out on a societal level. But here is the critical flaw in this mechanism, whether it is a society rioting or a single person punching a wall.
What's the flaw?
Releasing the energy through entropy doesn't actually change the underlying I am. It just bleeds off the pressure temporarily. The system returns to balance, but it is the exact same fragile system.
It doesn't rewrite the code.
Not at all.
So what happens when we figure out how to hack this system? What happens when we try to artificially create that positive imbalance, or when we try to numb out the negative friction without actually doing the hard, painful work of changing our core identity?
We fall directly into the trap of addiction.
Addiction.
And this is where Falco's work provides a really sharp lens. Addiction, in this context, is the illusion of need.
The illusion of need.
Yes, it is a temporary external fix for a chronic internal state of unfulfillment. We seek external mechanisms to force an entropic release, compensating for a fundamental lack of self-love and self-acceptance.
And the book breaks down several specific types of addiction. And it's pretty eye-opening because it goes way beyond just the chemical dependencies we usually think of, like drugs or alcohol.
Right. It looks at behavioral addictions.
Take codependence, for example. We all know people who will stay in miserable, toxic, completely dead relationships for years.
We've all seen it.
Why do they do it? Because their core I am says, I am nothing without a partner. I am unlovable on my own.
Yes.
The fear of being alone, the fear of facing that internal void is vastly more terrifying to their ego than the daily, predictable misery of the bad relationship.
Exactly. The relationship, even a toxic one, is just a drug they use to avoid facing their own lack of self-worth.
Gambling is another profound example of hacking the entropic system.
People often assume gambling addiction is just about the desire for money.
Right.
Falco suggests it is much deeper than that. It is an addiction to random reward and the fleeting, intense validation of being right.
Let's unpack the exact neurological loop of the gambler, because it's absolutely fascinating.
Okay, so if a gambler's internal identity, their deeply held I am, is I am a loser, or I am unlucky, or the world is against me.
Placing a bet is a way to briefly challenge that script.
Yes. When they sit at the blackjack table and win a hand, for a fleeting microsecond, their identity is elevated.
The script flips.
It flips to, I am smart, I am a winner, I figured out the system, the universe favors me. That microsurge of dopamine is a massive, positive, entropic release. It is a temporary rewrite of the I am.
But the crash is inevitable.
Inevitable.
Because as they scoop up the chips, the core identity hasn't actually changed. The deep-seated belief is still, I am a loser. So the friction returns immediately.
Instantly.
And they have to keep placing bets, chasing that microsurge again and again, trying to outrun their own shadow, which inevitably leads to financial and personal ruin.
Exactly. And then there's vanity, the addiction to appearance. This is incredibly prevalent today.
Oh, absolutely. Obsessing over clothes, makeup, extreme plastic surgery, or just curating the perfect social media feed.
If your internal script is, I am unlovable, or I am unattractive, you will use your physical appearance as armor.
You are constantly trying to extract validation from the outside world.
Right. A compliment, a stare, a like on a photo. You use those to momentarily quiet the deafening voice inside that says you aren't enough.
There is a particularly striking, almost uncomfortable example in the text regarding this kind of transactional validation.
The strip club example.
Yes. Falco talks about the psychology of strip clubs. He points out that the patron in a strip club is not actually paying for physical intimacy.
No, there is no real vulnerable human connection occurring there.
None at all. What they are paying for is an illusion. For 3 minutes or however long a song lasts, while the dancer is focused entirely on them, they are purchasing the sensation that they matter to someone.
It sparks that chemical rush, that positive entropic release that acts as a temporary patch over a broken, lonely I am.
They are literally buying the illusion of relevance.
It is a devastatingly clear assessment of why industries like that thrive. They are selling temporary identity patches.
It's like if you own a house and you have a massive leak behind the drywall,
Okay.
and the wall is completely covered in black, toxic mold. Your solution is to just go to the hardware store, buy a bucket of fresh, bright white paint, and slap a thick coat right over the mold.
Just paint over it.
Yeah. For a day, the room looks great, you feel good, the problem seems solved, but you didn't fix the plumbing.
The rot is still there.
The core I am belief is still festering back there, and by tomorrow, that black mold is just going to bleed right back through the fresh paint.
It always does.
You can keep painting it every single day with gambling or bad relationships or buying new clothes or chasing Instagram likes, but you are just exhausting yourself.
That is a very apt analogy. And to take it one step further, your ego is the shady contractor you hired who keeps convincing you that buying more paint is cheaper and easier than fixing the plumbing. Mostly because the contractor has absolutely no idea how to do plumbing. The ego only knows how to defend the surface. It doesn't know how to heal the root.
Okay, which brings us to the most frustrating question of this entire deep dive.
Get me?
If these external fixes so obviously fail, if the paint keeps peeling, and the only permanent solution is to tear down the wall and change our core identity, why is personal reality so incredibly stagnant?
That's the real puzzle.
Why do we fight change with such fierce, almost irrational resistance? If someone is miserable, why do they cling to the misery?
Falco suggests it is because of denial, delusion, and an absolute paralyzing fear of identity death.
Identity death.
We are terrified of the void.
Yeah.
We fear that if we try to change our I am, if we take a risk to become more than we are right now and we fail, we will actually end up becoming less than we are now.
It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't.
Exactly. To the ego, familiar misery feels vastly safer than unknown potential.
And this resistance fundamentally alters how we actually experience life. Falco ties this into his definition of time, which gets quite philosophical but is very, very relatable.
It is.
He suggests that time is relative to our resistance to the present moment.
This aligns perfectly with how dopamine and our internal biological clocks function, actually.
Really?
Think about your own experience. When you are resisting reality, when you are dreading an upcoming meeting, or you are suffering in physical pain, or you are sitting at the gate waiting for a delayed flight.
Time drags agonizingly slowly.
Every minute feels like an hour. You are fighting what is, you are generating friction.
But when you are in a state of joy or flow, or when you are deeply engaged in a hobby or a great conversation, when you are totally aligned with your environment, time flies.
It essentially ceases to exist in your awareness. 5 hours feel like 5 minutes.
So Falco is saying we literally trap ourselves in a stagnant perception of time by constantly resisting our present reality.
Yes. And a massive, massive component of that resistance is the historical baggage we insist on dragging into the present moment.
Oh, yeah.
The guilt, the shame, the profound regret about our past actions.
All right, this brings up what is undoubtedly the most controversial, but potentially the most liberating rule in the entire source text.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
I want to read it exactly because Falco states this unconditionally. He says, if you could have done better in a past moment, you would have.
It's a bold statement.
He argues that whatever action you took in the past, however regrettable, embarrassing, or harmful it seems to you now, was simply the absolute best survival mechanism you had access to based on your specific IM programming at that exact specific moment in time.
Right.
Now, hold on. I have to stop and challenge this heavily.
Please do.
I did the best I could. Doesn't that just let absolutely everyone off the hook for terrible behavior?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah. If someone lies to their spouse, or embezzles money, or commits a violent crime, and then just shrugs and says, well, my IAM was broken, I was operating on faulty code, I did the best I could, isn't that just a convenient philosophy for avoiding moral responsibility? It sounds like an excuse for sociopathy.
It is a vital and completely necessary pushback. If you view that statement through a purely moral or judicial lens, it absolutely sounds like an abdication of responsibility.
Exactly.
But Falco isn't operating in the realm of the judicial system here. He isn't saying that harmful behavior is socially acceptable, or that it shouldn't have real-world consequences, or that you shouldn't strive to make amends.
But what is he saying?
He is speaking purely to the internal mechanical process of psychological transformation.
Okay, explain the mechanics, because I'm struggling to separate the morality from it.
The mechanical point is this. You cannot rewrite the code of a computer while you are simultaneously attacking the computer with a hammer.
Oh, wow.
You cannot heal an identity that you are constantly aggressively judging. Guilt and shame are entropic friction.
Right.
If you look at your past self with hatred, shame, and disgust, you are actively pouring energy into that old identity. You lock that past self into your present reality.
So by hating who I was, I'm actually keeping that person alive in my head.
Precisely. Recognizing that your past self was operating on faulty programming, a broken, fear-based I am, isn't about condoning the damage that was caused.
Okay.
It is about releasing the internal mental resistance to the past so that you can actually dismantle that broken programming in the present.
So the guilt just traps you.
If you're drowning in guilt, your ego is fully engaged in defense mode. It is building walls it cannot learn.
Right.
True accountability requires the neutral clarity to look at your past and say, that was the script I was running. It was destructive. It caused pain. But I accept that I was incapable of running a different script at that time. I am now choosing to write a new script.
Ah, I see the distinction. Guilt and shame are actually forms of resistance. They're ego traps.
Yes, exactly.
They keep you anchored to the old identity because you are still obsessing over it, even if you're obsessing negatively.
Right. Dropping the baggage doesn't mean the past was okay. It means you accept that it happened, you accept that you were operating at a lower, unevolved level of awareness, and you accept your inherent perfection, meaning your inherent capacity for change in this present moment, right now.
Self-forgiveness is not a pardon for a crime. It is the clearing of the workspace so that actual rebuilding can commence.
That is a perfect way to put it.
And once you clear that path, once you drop the resistance to the past and the present, you can finally begin to consciously design your future.
Yes. Which brings us to the payoff.
The actual toolkit for conscious creation.
Exactly.
We've talked about how the ego works, how emotions trap us, how we filter reality, how do we actually rewrite the script. Falco says it fundamentally comes down to a choice between two opposing forces, fear and faith.
And he defines these very specifically, not in a religious sense, but as functional paradigms.
Right. Both fear and faith are, at their core, self-fulfilling prophecies. They are the directors giving instructions to the ego.
Fear focuses entirely on limiting possibilities. It is hyper-fixated on what can go wrong to protect the current identity.
It's the internal voice that says, If I ask that person out on a date, they'll laugh at me, I'll be humiliated, and my identity will be crushed.
Exactly. Faith, on the other hand, focuses on expansive possibilities.
Yeah.
Says, if I ask them out, they might say yes, and I might find true love.
And the universe, the quantum field, the ego, none of them care which one you choose.
No, they are totally neutral. The ego will just take whichever prophecy you believe and go to work making it happen.
To operationalize this concept of faith, Falco provides a very clear 5-step cycle of conscious creation. It is a methodical process of consciously overwriting the subconscious script.
Let's walk through them.
Step 1 is ask. This goes back to the beginning of our deep dive. This is the desire to know.
The willingness to admit your current limitations and create the vacuum. How do I become healthier? How do I find a fulfilling career?
Right. Step 2 is accept. This is often the hardest part, I think.
It requires immense, painful will to see the raw, unfiltered truth of your current state without the ego's defense mechanisms kicking in.
You have to accept that you are currently unhealthy, or that you are currently miserable in your job without blaming the wind or the slow golfers.
You have to fire the defense attorney.
Exactly. Then, step 3 is choose. This is the power move. This is where you declare your new I am.
You look at the menu of infinite quantum possibilities and say, I am choosing this specific reality.
Step 4 is act. And listener, this is where most of us completely fail. This is faith in physical motion.
You have to physically demonstrate the new identity in the real world, even before you fully see the results.
If your new I am is I am a healthy person, you have to act like a healthy person today. You go for the walk, you eat the salad, you don't wait to lose the weight to start acting healthy.
And step 5 is experience. This is the peace, the love, and the joy found in the result of the new reality you just successfully birthed through action.
The text gives a very practical, almost mundane way to apply this using an IAM worksheet. It takes it out of the theoretical and into the practical.
Step 1. Envision exactly what you desire. Get specific.
Step 2. Declare that you are worthy of it. That is the new I am.
I am worthy of a fulfilling, creative career.
Step 3. Become it by acting in complete accordance with that thought right now. You don't wait for the dream job offer to feel worthy. You act worthy right now.
You update your resume with confidence. You take a class. You signal to your ego and to the universe that the script has officially changed.
The ultimate example he uses for this, and it is a perfect illustration of this exact cycle, is Muhammad Ali.
Oh, a phenomenal example of conscious creation.
Before Muhammad Ali was the undisputed champion of the world, before he had the gold belts, before he had the undefeated record, when he was just a young, brash fighter, what did he do?
He walked around shouting, I am the greatest, to anyone who would listen.
He didn't wait for the external world to validate him. He didn't wait to beat Sonny Liston to declare his greatness. He declared it first. He forcefully gave his ego the script. We are the greatest.
And consider the immense cognitive dissonance that declaration created. By publicly declaring, I am the greatest, his ego was suddenly on the hook.
Right.
To avoid the massive, crushing, entropic failure of being proven a fraud, his ego compelled him to wake up at 4 a.m. to run. It compelled him to train harder than any other fighter alive.
He forced reality to bend to his declaration. He became it because he acted in accordance with the thought long before the thought was materialized in the form of a championship belt.
It perfectly mirrors the final analogy Falco draws in the book, which I absolutely love. He compares the human journey to the Wizard of Oz.
Think about those characters. You have the Scarecrow who desperately wants a brain, the Tin Man who wants a heart, the Cowardly Lion who wants courage, and Dorothy who just wants a home.
They go on this massive, terrifying external journey down the yellow brick road, facing witches and flying monkeys, seeking an all-powerful external wizard to grant them these things they believe they lack.
Right. But what is the ultimate revelation of the story? The wizard is a total fraud. He is just a guy behind a curtain pulling levers.
He has no magic to give them, because they already had the magic.
The Scarecrow was the one formulating the plans and solving problems the whole trip. The Tin Man was the one crying and showing deep empathy. The Lion was facing down physical danger to protect his friends.
They already possessed every single trait they were searching for externally. They just hadn't declared it internally. They hadn't accepted their own I am.
They thought they needed external permission to be who they already were.
It is the perfect synthesis of Falco's entire philosophy. The journey wasn't about acquiring the traits from the outside. It was about realizing they were already the source of them.
You, the listener, are an infinite essence currently experiencing a finite form. Your entire reality, your joy, your suffering, your successes, your addictions, your perception of time is dictated by the beliefs you attach to those two powerful words, I am.
The ego isn't your enemy. It's your profoundly dedicated servant waiting for good instructions. Your emotions aren't random punishments. They are a precise compass showing you exactly where you are resisting the truth.
And faith, not blind, passive belief, but the willingness to boldly act on a new, expansive possibility is the engine of your transformation.
It requires a profound, almost frightening shift in perspective. You are moving from being a passive victim of circumstance to becoming the conscious architect of your own experience.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with this specific thought experiment. When this audio ends, when you take out your earbuds or turn off your car or get up from the couch, take a hard, honest look at the very next action you perform today.
Look at it closely.
Does that action, whether it's sending an email, pouring a drink, or snapping at a family member, does that action validate an old, tired fear? Or does it declare a new, expansive faith?
Because the universe, your deeply obedient ego, and the quantum fabric of reality itself is listening right now to how you finish the sentence, I am, today.
Choose wisely.